Actually, it's interesting. Sounds rather sort of bizarre, but I did go to Diana's coffin, tissues and crying, and then I thought, look, I've got to get a grip here and do something useful for Diana, and I decided the day after I'd written it, and I read it to her in there, and I did sort of feel
Many people remember Princess Diana as the beloved people's princess, whose kindness, compassion, and tragic death touched millions around the world. Even decades later, her life continues to raise new questions and spark emotional conversations. Now, Diana's brother has finally broken his silence, and what he revealed has left many people shocked. His emotional words have started fresh discussions about Diana's legacy, her family, and the painful memories that remain. So, what did he say that has everyone talking? And why are so many calling it terrible news? Do you think Princess Diana's brother waited too long to speak out? Or was now the right time to share his thoughts? Let us know what you think in the comments. And if you enjoy stories about the royal family, be sure to subscribe so you don't miss our latest updates. The shocking truth behind Diana's funeral. On September 6, 1997, the world seemed to stop. The streets of London were filled with people mourning Princess Diana, while more than 2.5 billion people watched her funeral on television across the world. It was more than just a funeral. It was a moment of sadness shared by millions. Princess Diana's final journey was marked by a heartbreaking image that people will never forget. Her two sons walked behind her coffin with deep sadness on their faces. 15-year-old William and 12-year-old Harry had to do something no child should ever have to do. They had to mourn their mother in front of millions of people and countless cameras. As the crowd cried for the people's princess, the two young boys walked quietly behind her coffin. Their silence spoke louder than any words. But what the public did not know at the time was a shocking truth that only came out years later. That walk was never really their choice. The one person who tried to stop it was Diana's younger brother, Charles Spencer. He had shared her childhood, her happiest memories, and her hardest times. When a Buckingham Palace official told him that William and Harry would take part in the funeral procession, he reacted immediately. "No," he said. He was shocked by the idea. He believed it was cruel to make two grieving children walk in front of millions of people during one of the worst days of their lives. He argued that Diana would never have wanted her sons to go through something like that, but his concerns were quickly dismissed. The palace simply replied, "The decision has already been made." Even then, Spencer refused to give up. He continued to argue and pleaded for the boys to be spared the emotional pain and public attention. Then he was told something that changed everything. Palace officials said that William and Harry wanted to walk behind their mother's coffin. Believing it was their own decision, Spencer sadly accepted it. He did not want to stand in the way if this was how they wanted to honor their mother. But many years later, the real story finally came out. Prince Harry revealed that neither he nor his brother had agreed to the walk. There had been no discussion and no choice. At just 12 years old, Harry said he was simply told what to do. That painful truth changed everything for Charles Spencer. He realized he had accepted something he would have fought with all his strength to stop if he had known the truth. The day of the funeral was filled with sadness. Thousands of people stood along the streets holding flowers, carrying handwritten messages, and wiping away tears. When the funeral procession began, Charles Spencer walked beside Prince Charles, Prince Philip, and the two young princes. Television cameras followed every step they took. William and Harry looked pale, serious, and quiet. Years later, Harry explained that he had emotionally shut himself off during the funeral. So while the world mourned Princess Diana that unforgettable day, Charles Spencer carried another painful burden. Why has he decided to speak out now? And what shocking truth is he about to reveal that could once again shake the royal family? Let's take a closer look. Charles Spencer's emotional funeral speech. As people gathered beneath the huge, beautiful arches of Westminster Abbey, no one knew what was about to happen. The atmosphere was filled not only with sadness, but also with tension. Then Charles Spencer walked to the microphone. He stood tall, and his face showed very little emotion. For a few seconds, the entire Abbey was silent. Cameras focused on him. Millions of people watching around the world waited to hear his words. Instead, Spencer delivered a speech filled with deep emotion and painful truth. He did not only speak about Diana, he spoke on her behalf. His voice shook, not because he was afraid, but because he was filled with anger and heartbreak. He criticized the powerful forces that had followed his sister throughout her life, including the relentless media, the institutions that failed to protect her, and even the royal family, whose silence many believed had hurt her the most. He called Diana the most hunted person of the modern age. Those words struck everyone like a shock. Every person inside Westminster Abbey heard them: members of the royal family, world leaders, celebrities, and important guests. Yet very few showed any reaction. The Queen remained calm and expressionless. Prince Charles also showed little emotion. Outside the Abbey, however, the reaction was completely different. Many people cried, nodded in agreement, and applauded through their tears. Then something happened that had never been seen at a royal funeral before. People inside the Abbey began clapping. It was emotional, heartfelt, and completely unexpected. The applause broke the strict traditions normally followed during royal ceremonies. Spencer's speech was more than a eulogy. To many people, it felt like a powerful stand against the way Diana had been treated. In just a few minutes, Spencer did something the royal family had never done publicly. He separated Diana's legacy from the House of Windsor. He promised that Diana's own family would protect her sons, Prince William and Prince Harry, instead of leaving them entirely in royal hands. It was a bold message, delivered in front of the Queen herself. But life was far more complicated than that promise. Years later, Spencer admitted that he could never fully keep his vow. William and Harry were already deeply connected to royal life. Their education, security, daily routines, and much of the support around them were controlled by the monarchy. He could not remove them from that world or give them the peaceful, private life that Diana may have wanted for them. He had made a promise that, in the end, was impossible to fulfill. As the years passed, the pain never truly disappeared. Long after the funeral, Prince Harry spoke openly about the emotional wounds he still carried from that day. He remembered walking behind his mother's coffin without fully understanding why the world was watching such a private moment of grief. He later said that something like that would never happen today, but back then, no one stopped it and no one protected them. Charles Spencer has also said that the funeral continues to haunt him. He has never changed his belief that William and Harry should never have been made to walk behind their mother's coffin in front of millions of people. Looking back, his speech at the funeral was only the beginning. It marked the start of growing tensions within the family, a monarchy forced to face difficult questions, and a story that continued to unfold year after year. For William and Harry, that day was much more than a public farewell to their mother. It changed their lives forever. So how did the royal family respond? Did they say what the public was waiting to hear? Let's find out. The royal family's silence. Before the world had time to understand what had happened, the heartbreaking announcement came. Diana, Princess of Wales, was dead. But while the public openly grieved, something unusual was happening behind the palace walls. The royal family remained completely silent. Hours passed, then entire days. There was no public statement, no appearance, and no shared expression of grief. As people around the world struggled to accept Diana's death, the royal family stayed at Balmoral Castle in Scotland, far away from the crowds gathering in London. At first, many people believed the family simply wanted to mourn in private. They thought everyone was trying to deal with the terrible shock in their own way. But as more time passed, the silence no longer seemed like quiet grief. To many, it began to look like they simply did not care. Public frustration spread quickly across the country. Newspapers that had once supported the monarchy now criticized it. One famous headline demanded, "Your people are suffering. Where are you?" For perhaps the first time in many years, the royal family appeared completely out of touch with the people they were supposed to represent. While this public anger was growing, two young boys were facing the greatest tragedy of their lives behind the walls of Balmoral Castle. Prince William, who was 15, and Prince Harry, who was only 12, were asleep when their mother died. Their father, Prince Charles, had the heartbreaking job of waking them and telling them the terrible news. He gently explained that their mother had been killed in a car crash in Paris. The last conversation the boys had with their mother happened only one day before she died. It was a short, ordinary phone call. They ended it the way many families do, expecting there would always be another chance to talk. But after her death, those few words stayed with them forever. They couldn't stop wondering what might have happened if they had talked a little longer or told her how much they loved her. Inside Balmoral, there were very few open displays of emotion. The royal family had always been known for keeping their feelings private. William and Harry were cared for through routine, quiet, and self-control, rather than emotional conversations or public displays of comfort. Looking back years later, Harry admitted that he felt deeply confused. Outside the palace, millions of people were openly crying for his mother. But inside, everything remained strangely quiet. There were no long talks about grief, no public tears, only a silence that felt almost impossible to understand. Meanwhile, pressure from the public continued to grow. What had first seemed like respectful silence was now becoming a major public controversy. Queen Elizabeth, who was famous for staying calm and reserved during difficult times, finally realized she had to respond. On September 5, 1997, 5 days after Diana's death, she addressed the nation in a televised speech. Sitting before the cameras, she spoke warmly about Diana. "I want to pay tribute to Diana myself," the Queen said. She described Diana as an exceptional and gifted human being whose kindness and compassion had touched countless lives. However, the speech was meant to comfort the nation and rebuild the growing distance between the monarchy and the public, but that didn't go well with Charles Spencer. So, how did he react to the palace? Was he furious? Let's find out. Spencer's fight for Diana. Charles Spencer never stayed quiet. From the moment Diana became part of the royal family, he watched his sister slowly lose the happiness and spirit that once made her shine. He wanted the whole world to know that what happened to Diana was not just a private family problem. In his eyes, it was a public failure caused by the very institution that was supposed to protect her. Diana entered royal life as a hopeful, kind-hearted 19-year-old. She was full of dreams, warmth, and excitement about the future. But instead of receiving love and support, she found herself trapped by strict traditions and endless rules. She was expected to smile, wave to crowds, and always look like the perfect princess. Behind that smile, however, she was struggling. Charles Spencer watched his sister suffer not only as a loving brother, but as someone who believed the royal family was slowly destroying the woman they should have cared for. Even after Diana's tragic death, Spencer refused to stay silent. He continued speaking in interviews, speeches, and documentaries. As the years passed, his words did not become gentler. Instead, his anger became even stronger. He believed the royal family had failed Diana in every way. They turned away from her emotionally, and later failed to protect her when she needed help the most. Diana was still the mother of a future king and one of the most famous women in the world, yet Spencer believed she was left alone when she was most vulnerable. In his view, the facts were impossible to ignore. The paparazzi followed her everywhere, day and night. The palace knew what she was going through, but he believed they did very little to help. There was no extra protection and no serious effort to stop the constant harassment. Instead, the photographers chased her across different countries until, on August 31, 1997, that chase ended in the tunnel in Paris, where she lost her life. But Diana's death was not the only thing that filled Spencer with anger. He believed it exposed a much bigger problem. In his view, the royal institution had benefited from Diana's popularity and public image, but once she no longer fit their plans, she was pushed aside. To him, that treatment was deeply cruel and impossible to forgive. Then came the moment the world would never forget: his funeral speech. Standing before millions of grieving people, Spencer delivered what many still see as one of the boldest speeches ever given at a royal funeral. He did more than comfort those who were mourning. He challenged those he believed had failed his sister. He strongly criticized the paparazzi, but he also directed powerful words at the monarchy. When Spencer said Diana needed no royal title to make a difference, he reminded everyone that her kindness, compassion, and influence came from her own heart, not from the crown. Her ability to touch people's lives had nothing to do with being a princess. She was loved because of who she was. Then he made a promise that shocked people around the world. With millions watching, Spencer said that Diana's sons, William and Harry, would not be left to face life alone. He promised that Diana's own family would love them, guide them, and protect them with the same imagination and compassion that Diana herself had always shown. Many people saw his words as a sign that he had lost trust in those who had failed their mother. Inside Westminster Abbey, the royal family remained calm and expressionless. Queen Elizabeth did not react, and King Charles, then Prince Charles, showed little emotion. Outside the Abbey, however, the public responded with loud applause. People cried, hugged each other, and cheered. Many believed Spencer had finally spoken the words they had been feeling for years but had been afraid to say out loud. Spencer did not stop speaking after the funeral. Over the years, he continued to criticize the way Diana had been treated. He described the royal family's behavior as cold, uncaring, and cruel. According to Spencer, no one truly came to her rescue and nothing ever changed. But why did Harry stand against the palace? And why did he leave the royal family? Let's take a closer look. Spencer's criticism of the royal family. Charles Spencer refused to stay silent. While many people blamed the royal institution for Diana's suffering, Spencer went even further. He believed certain people inside the palace were responsible. In his view, some wanted Diana to become weaker, pushed aside, and eventually forgotten. They saw her incredible popularity as a danger. She was warm, caring, emotional, and deeply loved by the public. She had a special connection with people that the palace did not know how to handle. Instead of supporting her, they tried to control her. Reporters followed her everywhere she went, while the palace left her to deal with the pressure alone. She had little protection, very little support, and was surrounded by endless camera flashes and newspaper headlines. Even after Diana's death, Spencer believed the royal family continued to fail her. One thing that deeply upset him was the way her funeral was organized. He strongly opposed the decision to make young Prince William and Prince Harry, who were only 15 and 12 years old, walk behind their mother's coffin through the streets of London as millions of people watched around the world. Spencer argued against the plan. He met with palace officials and begged them not to put the boys through such a painful experience. He believed they were too young and too heartbroken, but his concerns were ignored. Many years later, Harry admitted publicly that walking behind his mother's coffin left emotional scars that stayed with him for the rest of his life. William also said that no child should ever have to go through something so painful. Spencer's fears had been correct, but his voice had been overruled by royal tradition. As the years went by, Spencer did not soften his criticism. Instead, he became even more outspoken. Through speeches and interviews, he continued reminding people that Diana had been left alone during the hardest time of her life. While Spencer fought with words, Diana's youngest son chose a different way. Harry chose to take action. From an early age, many people noticed how much Harry reminded them of Diana. He shared her passion, kindness, independent spirit, and discomfort with royal life. He never forgot the way his mother had been treated, the constant attention from the media, the lack of support from the institution, and most painfully, the night she died in a tunnel in Paris while photographers chased her. That painful memory never left him. Years later, Harry admitted that even the sound of cameras clicking could instantly take him back to 1997. But eventually, it was no longer only about his own memories. He believed he was watching the same tragedy happen again, this time to Meghan. The newspaper headlines became increasingly harsh. Support from inside the palace seemed to disappear, and Meghan, like Diana before her, struggled under the constant pressure. Harry believed history was repeating itself. Unlike his mother, however, he had a choice she never truly had. He could leave. So, in 2020, Harry and Meghan made one of the most surprising decisions in modern royal history. They stepped back from their royal duties, moved to the United States, and ended their formal working relationship with the royal institution that had shaped and deeply hurt them both. It was not simply an act of rebellion, it was an attempt to protect themselves. Harry was not trying to destroy the monarchy. He was trying to protect the people he loved most, his family. By doing this, Harry continued the journey Diana had started years earlier. Before her death, she had begun separating herself from royal life, building an independent future, and telling her own story. In many ways, Harry completed the path his mother had begun, and quietly watching from the sidelines was Charles Spencer. He did not need to give interviews about Harry's decision. His position was already clear. After spending decades criticizing the royal system, it was obvious why he understood and supported Harry's choice to walk away from the very institution Spencer had challenged for so many years. How did a woman who felt trapped inside the royal family become one of the most admired women in history? Why do millions still love her? Let's explore further. Diana's legacy of honesty. Princess Diana's story is much more than a part of royal history. It is a story that still touches the hearts of millions of people around the world. What made her so unforgettable was not her royal title, but the way she used it to help others. Instead of staying distant like many royals, Diana chose to be close to people. She walked among them, held their hands, and listened to them with kindness and compassion. Whether she was comforting people living with AIDS at a time when many were afraid to go near them, or walking through an active minefield in Angola to support a worldwide ban on landmines, Diana showed a level of courage that inspired the world. But the biggest reason people loved her was her honesty. She never tried to act as if her life was perfect. At a time when the royal family was expected to hide all personal problems, Diana openly spoke about her battle with bulimia and the emotional pain she experienced during her marriage. Her honesty made her more than just a princess. It made her someone people could truly relate to. People saw their own fears, struggles, and dreams in her. Her beautiful fashion often made headlines, but it was her caring heart that made a lasting difference. Diana brought warmth, kindness, and compassion to a royal family that many people saw as distant and formal. She also helped change what people expected from the royal family. She showed that true leadership comes from kindness, honesty, and caring for others. Today, her sons continue to support mental health awareness and humanitarian causes that were close to their mother's heart. However, people still love Princess Diana because she never acted as though she was above everyone else. She made people feel seen, heard, and valued. Her legacy lives on, not simply because she was a princess, but because she was genuine, compassionate, and deeply human. So, who's Charles Spencer? How was his early days? Let's find out. Charles Spencer. Charles Edward Maurice Spencer was born on May 20th, 1964 in Marylebone, London. He was the youngest of 5 children born to John Spencer and Frances Roche. Because his mother's family had a close relationship with the British royal family, Charles was baptized at Westminster Abbey. One of his godmothers was Queen Elizabeth II. Charles grew up with his 3 older sisters, Sarah, Jane, and Diana. He shared a particularly close bond with Diana, who would later become Princess Diana. Before Charles was born, his parents had another son named John. Sadly, John died just 10 hours after he was born. Because of this, Charles later became the heir to the Spencer family title. When Charles was just 3 years old, his parents' troubled marriage ended in divorce after his mother began a relationship with Peter Shan Kidd. In 1975, Charles became known as Viscount Althorp after his father inherited the title of Earl Spencer following the death of Charles's grandfather. Charles began his education at Silfield Private School in King's Lynn, Norfolk. At the age of 8, he was sent to Maidwell Hall, a private boarding school in Northamptonshire. He later studied at Eton College before going on to Magdalen College, Oxford, where he earned a degree in modern history. In March 2024, at the age of 59, Charles published his memoir, A Very Private School. In the book, he revealed the painful experiences he endured while attending Maidwell Hall. He described a place filled with violence, cruelty, fear, and a complete lack of kindness. He wrote about being beaten so badly that he bled, suffering sexual abuse, and feeling abandoned after being sent away from home at such a young age. Charles also described the harsh punishments he witnessed at the school, including young children being repeatedly caned while naked. While researching the book, he spoke with many former students. Some told him they had been sexually abused several times during their years at the school. Others shared heartbreaking stories about classmates who later lost their lives because of the lasting emotional damage they suffered. One former student even wrote in his final wishes that he never wanted to see his parents again because he could never forgive them for sending him there. In the memoir, Charles explained that the abuse left deep emotional scars. He wrote that the school had sown demons into the souls of its victims. Reliving those painful memories while writing the book became so overwhelming that he suffered an emotional breakdown and later entered a residential treatment center to receive professional help. Charles believes that the harsh treatment many children experienced in British boarding schools has affected them for the rest of their lives. He argues that when some of these former students later become leaders and people in powerful positions, the emotional damage they carry can also have harmful effects on society. After Charles made his allegations public, Madewell Hall reported the claims to the local council. In June 2024, Northamptonshire police announced that they had opened an official investigation into the allegations. So what do you think about the shocking revelation by Diana's brother, Charles Spencer? Share your thoughts with us in the comments section. Don't forget to like and subscribe.